Some GIs are locked in a firefight with a section of Japanese soldiers somewhere in the South Pacific. One American soldier is hit. His comrades hear him say, "Goodbye, darling," as he falls to the ground. After they've pushed the enemy back, they rush to where the boy fell, only to find him dead. But they notice something in his hands. Upon prying his fingers open, they discover he was clutching a picture of Hollywood star Betty Grable as he lay dying. In his final moments, a soldier wanted to think of a celebrity he had likely never met. Why? Let's find out. This is On the Homefront, a series of World War II in real time. I'm Anna Deinhard. That was a true story, or at least it was reported as true by Modern Screen magazine in October 1943. And it's not difficult to believe. Women are one of the biggest motivators for men to fight and maybe die for their country. This is obvious as soon as America joins the war. Jean Ruth started broadcasting her own radio show only a couple of months before Pearl Harbor. By January 1942, Time magazine had this to say about it. After many pretty girls to whom the army looks for the joys of life, few have merited as much mass devotion as a cheerful, blue-eyed little number, known as Beverly on Denver station KFEL. She is directly responsible for the fact that 28,000 army men at Fort Logan and 3 other army posts get up willingly before sunrise. Jean, or Beverly, moved to Los Angeles later in the year to record with CBS. By now, in late 1943, her voice is being sent out across the world by Armed Forces Radio. Her warmth no doubt gives servicemen the emotional gratification they are so missing. But there are other women, or rather depictions of them, which provide men with another kind of gratification. The sexual kind. And for this, Esquire magazine is at their service. Founded in 1933, it has quickly grown from a men's fashion magazine into an all-round cultural tastemaker. But it is also known for its girly cartoons featuring glamorous women drawn in suggestive poses and even various stages of undress. Since 1940, the featured lady has usually been one of the Vargas girls. These are drawn by a Peruvian-born Alberto Vargas. Esquire probably decided to drop the S in his credits to distance themselves from Getúlio Vargas, Brazil's fascist-leaning president. Vargas girls are drawn to be unashamedly exhibitionist, impossibly proportioned, and as faultless as a classic marble statue. And even before the war, they were promoting patriotic ideals. After America entered the conflict, nearly every gatefold and special calendar addresses the conflict in some way. Though marketed towards men, Esquire also has a large female readership, and some of the cartoons work as both eye candy and calls to service. The mix makes them even more popular among servicemen who love decorating the barracks and foxholes with the sultry women. The demand from the military is so great that Esquire has started shipping to bases all across the world, free of charge and with no advertisement. 9 million copies of the magazines will be issued in this way. GIs write to Esquire telling of all the different places in the world a Vargas girl is hanging and how they are often next to pictures of Mom, Pop, and FDR. One posted photo shows Marines huddled around an Esquire centerfold as their landing craft approaches the burning island of Tarawa. Vargas girls and other pin-ups also accompany pilots up into the skies. Servicemen paint them onto plane noses and christen them with names such as Dynamite, Eager Beaver, and Booby Trap. The power of Vargas girls in boosting morale leads one comedian to joke: "Our American troops are ready to fight at the drop of an Esquire." Of course, not everyone is happy with the popularity of Vargas girls. Postmaster General Frank C. Walker has been especially annoyed that his post office is used to circulate such material. In October 1943, he revoked Esquire's second-class mailing privileges because of the obscene, lewd, and lascivious character. Mailing at first-class rates would cost the magazine hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So they have challenged the decision to a post office. They brought 38 nationally known educators, scientists, and activists before the post office hearing board to prove its content is not indecent. The board has actually sided with Esquire, but Postmaster Walker is going ahead with the revocation anyway. The case will bounce around the courts for the rest of the war. Along the way, Esquire will pick up the support of the ACLU and most major national newspapers. And the men bitterly defend their right to pin-ups as well. As one group of GIs will write to Yank magazine in 1944, maybe if some of those panty waists had to be stuck out someplace where there are no white women and few native women for a year and a half, as we were, they would appreciate even a picture of our gals back home. The American military is also quite happy for its servicemen to fulfill their urges. Doing so not only maintains their virility, but is also a handy way of countering venereal diseases and homosexuality spreading through the ranks. A manual published by the National Research Council titled Psychology for the Fighting Man explains further. Though a more active and willed expression of sex, it is still a substitute when a man relieves his sexual tension by himself. To do this is not abnormal or physically harmful if it is only resorted to as a temporary outlet, and if the man does not feel guilty or worried about it. A song from servicemen in the Pacific puts the matter more directly. Masturbation is the fashion for unrequited passion. If girls can do it, why can't we? But out here in the Pacific, purely as a soporific, nothing equals simple self-abuse. That's a weird rhyme. It didn't rhyme at all. Okay, weird song. Still, there is a pin-up star more popular than even the most naked Varga girl. It is, of course, the one and only Betty Grable. She has performed professionally since she was just 13. At 26, she is now one of Hollywood's biggest stars and has a carefully cultivated image of all-American wholesomeness. She is the girl next door all the boys want to marry. Betty is already doing her part for the war effort. The United Services Organization is a government-backed civilian association whose main task is boosting servicemen morale. Grable performs regularly at the USO's Hollywood Canteen, a club set up for men about to head off to war. She also goes on nationwide tours to perform in the famous USO camp shows. She is often joined by other leading beauties such as Rita Hayworth and Irene Manning. Like most stars, their images become some of the pin-ups accompanying men to war. Some come from magazines or publicity shoots, but others are specifically shaped for morale-boosting purposes and even commissioned by the US government. But it's the pin-up starring Betty Grable the boys love the most. Shot this year, it comes from a publicity shoot from her latest film Sweet Rosie O'Grady. Dressed in a white bathing suit and looking coyly over her shoulder, Betty and her legs are on full display. It may not be as explicit as the Varga girls or even the pin-ups from other stars like Rita Hayworth, but it is an instant success. 20th Century Fox will claim to have sent 5 million copies of it out to servicemen by the war's end. Its relative modesty is actually the key to its success. Life magazine has published an article, Betty Grable's Legs, which analyzes the matter. They are the great average American legs. Straight, perfectly rounded and shaped, but withal judged by the same standards as millions of others. Betty is the beautiful girl who could be your sweetheart back at home. It's more than just sex, as one veteran will later tell her. There we were, out in those damn dirty trenches. Machine guns firing, bombs dropping all around us. We would be exhausted, frightened, confused, and sometimes hopeless about our situation, when suddenly someone would pull your picture out of his wallet. Or we'd see a decal of you on a plane, and then we'd know what we were fighting for. She represents the American way of life, waiting for the men once they have fought to defend it. She is the symbol of the American girlfriend or wife. She will even symbolize motherhood when she gives birth to her first daughter in 1944. This symbolism is even more potent for the men fighting far away from what they consider civilization. Many soldiers don't consider native women worth their attention. We've already seen this in that soldier's letter scolding the panty waist for criticizing pin-ups. When servicemen see white female nurses or entertainers in the South Pacific, they will often claim they are the first women they have seen in months and years. Time magazine will note how Grable's popularity increases in direct ratio to soldiers' remoteness from civilization. On the topic of race, like many things in America, pin-ups are segregated by skin color. Lena Horne is the Betty Grable for black soldiers. But pin-ups don't just feature the stars of the age. Real wives and girlfriends sometimes make their own. Psychology for the fighting men encourages the practice, and so does Betty herself. Edwards are constantly remind women to maintain their beauty for their military men. One 1943 Edward for soap has the headline, "I pledge myself to guard every bit of beauty that he cherishes in me." A 1944 face powder Edward will command women to be his pin-up girl. Thousands of women answer this command, sending pictures of themselves to their men overseas. Some single girls even send their photographs to servicemen they have never met. They are often more modest than professional pin-ups, but they still follow the conventions of the genre. It further shows how pin-ups are not just a sexual outlet for men, but a symbol of why they are fighting and who they are fighting for. As some GIs in New Guinea will put it to a reporter, we are not only fighting for the 4 freedoms, we are fighting also for the priceless privilege of making love to American women. That is the power of the pinup. Of course, this privilege rarely considers the thoughts and feelings of the women themselves. In fact, those GIs may as well have said it was their right to have sex with American women, because that is the dynamic that pinups partly reveal. Women as objects for men to protect and to project their fantasies onto. The mix of that with the extreme violence of war can make pinups seem quite disturbing, especially as men on both sides of this conflict often claim their supposed rights forcefully. But like so many items of pop culture, there is a lot you can say about the pinup girl. Because while she might represent an objectification of women, she will also play some part in providing women with a language to understand their sexuality and their control over it. It is a different history to this episode, but it will come in handy once the sexual revolution arrives. Maybe it's a history I'll tell you about one day. Women play a pretty big role in the American war effort. To learn more about this, you can watch my previous video on Rosie the Riveter. Click on the link popping up right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. To join the Time Ghost Army, leave a comment below, all that good stuff. Thank you for listening.